Imagine a world where you're a white belt or a blue belt, and every time you enter someone's guard, you don't get immediately swept, put into an ankle lock, finish, go out to your car, stare over the steering wheel with 1,000-yard stare, listen to Fortunate Son, and cry. That's what we're going to solve for you in this episode of How to Pass Guard. Enjoy. All right, so I've been working on a little bit of passing stuff, slight mixture between Joseph Chen stuff that I've learnt, slight mixture between Kynan stuff that I used at ADCC, slight mixture between Lucas Lepre in the gi, and all of these sort of mold into a really nice system of playing between a couple of different positions, getting to chest half, and using the split squat style that you see from New Wave, and a whole bunch of different pieces. But I've picked up some things that are working really nicely. So what we're trying to do from here is we're trying to use that same like camping style, right? We're forcing them to make a mistake to try and off balance us and extend us so that we can capitalize off their mistakes. So when we get into this position, I just thumb post the inside of his knee here, and I take a V grip on the front of his ankle. What I want to do is kind of like the wax on, wax off thing, right? I want to keep fluidity in the grip so that wherever he moves his foot, I take my hand with it. It's actually really fucking annoying to try and start to strip this grip. Conversely, the one that's thumb posting is not doing that. I want as much weight of my torso over that grip. So I'm going to thumb post this. I'm going to do a good job at pressing this down towards the floor. I'm going to sit and float my weight. Even if he has a hook grip, I'm not too worried about this. I'm just going to continue to move my right hand as he moves his leg, as he tries to go into inside positions. I'm going to be completely fine here. I'm just going to start to float. What I don't want to do is I don't want to make the mistake of him starting to off balance me and I take my leg forwards. If I take my leg forwards, he gets double leg control, and now I'm in a bit of a tough spot. For me to strip that grip, I have to release my hand. Once I release my hand, exactly right, he starts to release his foot. So you don't want to make that mistake. So when we're beginning here, hard thumb post on the left-hand side, or whichever hand you choose to use. Nice fluid grip in this position. He thinks he has an advantage by having a hook grip here. He really doesn't. I'm as connected to him as he is to me, so it's not a big problem. And we're just going to let our training partner start to off-balance us in any way that they see fit. We're going to practice taking our right leg backwards. We're going to practice taking our right leg sideways. If he tries to off-balance me with De La Hiva, I post. If he tries to off-balance me with a knee lever, I post backwards. If he goes into reverse guard, like this, tries to take me outside, I post backwards. I will stumble, but I won't be falling, and I'm always maintaining my grips. It's very important that you always maintain these grips. So we go back to a neutral position. I've constantly got my weight aimed towards his far shoulder. Even if he starts to off-balance me over to my left, my head goes over his far shoulder, and my hips always make the adjustment. So get a partner, play around with this, and then we'll start to work some things through. So there's a nice little combination that we can start to do depending on where this knee is pointing. If his knee's open towards my top hip and he starts to open his legs, this is where we can start to play with knee cuts. What I'm going to do very easily, I'm going to start to punch my left hand, into the gap of his right hip and his right elbow. I'm going to take everything in like a 45-ish. I don't want to cut this direction. I actually want to cut across his hips. So I'm going to keep my knee and elbow connected. I'm going to start to reach towards his belly button here as I start to circle over. When he inevitably tries to face me and wrestle up and prevent me, I'm going to crash my chest, dig this underhook. I'm going to start to cross face him as I start to come through. I'm going to link my hands palm to palm. If they're really giving it some and they're taking their far shoulder off the mat, I'm going to place my hands underneath that far shoulder, and I'm going to move not in the lateral direction anymore. I'm going to take my head and shoulders up over his frames, destroying his ability to start to frame me away. And then if he latches onto my lower leg, any means possible, I'm going to take my right foot. I'm going to clear the top leg off first, and I'll clear the bottom foot and easily extract my leg. When we end up in this pinning position, I don't want to stay out here. If I make the mistake of putting my chest too high, he punches an underhook, and now we're in a battle for wrestling up. If that does happen, if you do make the mistake of keeping your chest high enough, I want you to take your right knee towards his center line, and your left knee is going to climb over his hip. If he tries to wrestle up from here, I've got the head height battle and the hip battle. I'm just going to walk his hips flat down and away. If you don't make that mistake and you do get a really nice purchase on the crossface and the underhook, I still want you to move your knee, but not over the belly this time. You're going to walk the hips down and away and start to walk his hips so that they face the other direction. If he tries to wrestle up now, It's impossible. The second variation of what we're going to look at is when he blocks the knee cut and he starts to point his knee towards my bottom hip. If you try and knee cut through this, you'll meet a lot of resistance and it's not going to work. So you can still threaten the knee cut only to load him up so that he drives this knee further down. We're going to take our right hand on the mat this time and we're going to start to hip switch. Now it doesn't matter if he has the grip, like a really solid hook grip. The way that we break that is we're going to start to drop our right hip onto his hip. I'm going to pull my heel to my butt. I'm going to extend my leg very close. I'm not trying to like back step this way and give him the space to turn his knees on the inside. Notice how my right hip's connected to his hip, and I'm simply going to return my hips to facing square towards the mat. He most likely will turn in to face me where I get into this same position. If he turns away, we're going to hug the tight waist and we're going to prevent his top hip from getting over his bottom hip. When we decide that we want to let him go, we're going to start to step on the bottom of his calf here so that when he does decide to go and I allow him, I easily make this near side hook pummel. You're looking at where his knee position is. If he leaves his knee open at this side, we're going to punch the underhook. We're going to start to drag across his hips, aiming across his belly button. I sink my weight back down and over my heel at this stage. He might try and wrestle up. I'm going to take that opportunity to claim crossface underhook. If he latches onto my leg, I'll clear top and then bottom, walk the hips flat. If I make the mistake of giving him too much space, he punches an underhook and starts to wrestle up, I'll take my right knee to his center line. I'll get my left knee across the side of his hip, and it doesn't matter how strong he is, how big he is, how fast he is. If he tries to wrestle up from here, I'll walk his hips flat and I'll likely end up in mount or 3/4 mount. If he blocks that, we've done it to him a couple times, points his knee to my bottom hip, I'm going to threaten the knee cut. I'm going to jam my right hip into his right hip as I post my right hand. I'll pull my heel to my butt like this. I'll hip switch and I'll land on top of it. If he turns in, I do the same thing, claiming the crossface. You won't necessarily get an underhook at this stage, but if he does punch the underhook, starts to wrestle up, I step over. If he turns away, make sure that his top hip can't get in front of his bottom hip, enough time for me to start to expose this calf. Now that I've slowed him down enough, I'll start to let him go, pull my knee to my chest, throw my hook in the near side. Let's give that a go. This was only something I used to do to Curtis just to make fun of him. But let's say we're playing around in De La Riva, he does a really good job. He goes towards my bottom hip and he starts to perform what we call reverse guard. What they're gonna do is they're gonna lock their shin just at the head of your tibia, and they're gonna lock foot to foot, and they're gonna take you this way so that you stumble enough so that he can bring his bottom leg inside and then put you in ashiguramis. Jason Rao is one of the best at this. If you wanna watch some more in-depth stuff, go look at his DVDs. But let's say that he starts to go towards reverse guard. I realize that the hip switch I'm too high for, the knee cut is obviously not gonna work. I'm gonna wait till he extends me. I'm gonna keep this thumb post. I'm gonna start to go C grip over here like a retard hand. I'm gonna start to cup the inside of his quad as I extend my own leg away, bumping this through, and I'm gonna claim his knee, not by going straight down and allowing him to bring that back through the gap, but by taking this L shape. So now that when he tries to bring his knee through the gap, it's no longer possible. From this position, I'm gonna crash his far shoulder, taking my head all the way over that far side. I'm gonna roll him flat. Sometimes your leg will be completely let go and you'll end up in mount. Most of the time, you'll end up in 3/4 mount. Notice how I've got the beginnings of an underhook on my left-hand side. I'll start to claim that, and now we're in a really good spot. He's in De La Riva, we're playing around, we're starting to balance, we're not bringing our leg too high, we're starting to stutter step. He goes for the beginnings of a reverse guard, and I either take one hand or two hands. Most of the time, one hand's sufficient enough. I keep his legs pointed out this way with my left thumb post. I go false grip over the front of his knee here. I extend as he extends, push it through the gap, fold my knees together. Punch the underhook, crash the far shoulder, land in 3/4 mount. Let's give that a go.